Hey all, this is part 6 of how I became an entrepreneur in mobile games, from employee to entrepreneur. And we're pretty much up to 2013 now, I think. The last thing I kind of discussed was that the iOS App Store and our games on iOS has started to trickle down at this point. I probably released about maybe 10 games, maybe 12, maybe more at that point. And I was trying to get the games out pretty fast, trying to get them done pretty quickly. And that was an okay model, but problem is I didn't really apply any specific ASO techniques. Icons, keywords, titles, all that stuff I hadn't really thought about. Oh, Lou's licking me like crazy. And so yeah, the revenue started to take a hit around late 2012, and I think a lot of developers did, like I said. So around 2013, I then I'm trying to think what I did next. I'd moved apartments in Shanghai. I'd moved to a new place, and I was living with obviously my wife and her sister. She had moved into Shanghai. We moved into a kind of expensive apartment in Shanghai, and that wasn't good. You guys have probably seen a lot of, if you're on the channel, you'd seen a lot of the videos of me and in that apartment. I think that's where I mainly started to do the How to Make Mobile Games channel in 2013. And I think the first video I did was the Pong tutorial video. The Pong tutorial video in 2013, I think. And that's the very first video that I did for the How to Make Mobile Games channel. And that's the apartment that I'm talking about. That's the expensive one where I was kind of like really getting nervous about money again and trying to keep money as low as possible spending wise. I had built all the games up to that point. I'd worked on all of them myself, done all of the artwork, all of the icons, screenshots, any kind of marketing, doing the videos and so on. And I think in 2013 I first released the Killer Shooting Sniper X at that point as well, which is probably one of the most successful games that I built, because even today it's on iOS, and it was on Google Play until last year, I think, and it's also on Amazon. But people still make in-app purchases in those games, and it still brings in some ad revenue as well. But the in-app purchases are pretty good in that game, because there's like a weapon select screen before the game starts, and the weapons are huge. These big weapons, like 3 of them, and so that game was good. And I also did the video on that one as well, How to Make Mobile Games, and the goal was to sort of build up how to make mobile games on YouTube in order to market and cross-promote the games as well. So whilst I was building the games and doing tutorials, I could also kind of market them at the same time. I can't remember, but I don't think the revenue was very good at that time, because AdMob in 2013 just kept on dropping and dropping and dropping as well. I think because the downloads kept dropping. I think I was making in mid 2012 was like the high point, and I made I think one day it hit $200 in one day just from AdMob, and that's only because the games were getting like 800 to 1,000 downloads every day each, easily, without any special SEO or special titles or anything like this. So that was really good. But then 2013 started to get really tough, and that was probably, to be honest, guys, was probably the hardest year. I think that was the hardest year. Either 2012 was because that's when my money went so low. There was also like general pressure around getting these projects done. But I think maybe 2013 was the hardest year. I think that was the hardest year, probably because also my skin was really terrible at that point. And also because my back, my sciatica problem started in that year as well. So I was basically starting to have really tough back trouble. And maybe a few of you remember the video that I did about it, maybe when would it have been? It would have been like maybe a year and a half ago now, perhaps I did that video. and or maybe a year ago. But I was talking about back pain, and the reason was basically because I wasn't getting any exercise, not sleeping right, and I was sitting in a soft chair, in a strange sort of like angle on this soft chair. So that was a big problem, and it made my life really, really, really hard at that point, because I was constantly in pain all the time. Like the only way I was not in pain is if I was lying down flat on my bed, or if that was it. If I was just lying down flat on my bed, this is the only time I wasn't in pain. Hey, shush, come here. And talking about it now, my back's hurting a little bit. It's gone away now, though. I mean, mostly. But yeah, that was a massive problem. Standing up in the shower, walking in the street, going out, trying to run became so difficult at that point in 2013. It was absolutely terrible. My skin was terrible as well, and it just seemed to get worse. I remember one time where I had tried to like scrape my I thought, oh, maybe it's just bacteria, so I just need to rub my face really hard with a towel and that'll get rid of the problem. And no, it didn't. It just made it even redder and even worse. Sorry guys, let me just move Louis. Come here, Lou. So that was really a really tough year. I made other games after that as well, of course. I was just coding on my own. Killer Shooting Sniper X was probably the most successful one, as I said. I'm trying to think what other games I did around that time. There was of course, there was a bunch of others. I can't remember what I've made now. But yeah, I kept on making small games. The model was to make them fast, including at purchases. I think at that time I'd got a new Google Play account, and so I was able to get games on there. But I'd actually got, after my first account got cancelled, I got another account, and that got cancelled as well, for the same reason of overusing keywords, even though I'd pulled it back so much. And I tried to do it again. Sorry guys, let me just pause this 1 second. Alright, hopefully this is still recording. Sorry about that, I had to take care of Louis. He decided to go to the toilet in the middle of the room while I was doing the video. So anyway, so 2013, yeah, I would... it was a really tough year. I think I'd done a lot of games. I was making them fast, I remember that. And releasing them onto iOS, of course, which was just getting really tough. Really saturated as well, the market. AdMob revenue was dropping, and that was getting tough as well. And then I think towards kind of late 2013, or kind of, I'm not sure which time, maybe mid 2013, I'd started to try to release a couple of games on the Amazon App Store, and at the time, the Amazon App Store was the savior. It really was. It was. I remember. I wasn't expecting much from the Amazon App Store. I thought, oh, yeah, it's a smaller store, and I published games onto other stores as well, like Slider Me, and like Ninja Birds X was one of them that I published onto Slider Me, and that had done okay on there. And I'd published other games onto smaller stores as well, and I didn't really think much about Amazon. I was thinking, no, it'll be okay, maybe, we'll see. But Amazon turned out to be great, really good in the beginning. I think maybe because it just wasn't saturated, and maybe because Amazon had sold a bunch of Kindle devices around Christmas in 2013, and had done really well, really well. And so I think, what were the numbers like? I mean, it was huge. I mean, I was getting thousands of downloads of Killer Shooting Sniper X in the beginning. Really well. And some good in-app purchases as well, if I remember correctly. Chick's Revenge was on there as well. The other games like Ninja Birds X and Accelerate X and so on. And Alpha Jetpack X was on there as well. That was another one of the X series games. And it was just doing so well. I was like, oh, thank God I found the oasis in the desert, and thank God. And that was a really good time to catch that as well. I mean, when I say it was really good, I don't mean that all of a sudden the money just like, you know, skyrocketed into heaven. But I think towards sort of like maybe late 2013, it started to get a little bit better. But I was still working like crazy. I might have been making, I don't know, sort of like $80 a day or something like that. Maybe I can't remember the exact figures around that point. But I was still working like crazy. I was still doing everything myself, building the games from start to finish, coding, testing, publishing, trying to get onto other markets. Just basically being like a one-man team to get everything done, which is good for a little while, but definitely no way to build a business. So what I needed to do was figure out how to build a company and get a team. But obviously you need money to do that. But the money was getting a little bit better around late 2013. I think one of the changes that I made in 2013 is that because AdMob was suffering so much, the revenue was suffering so much, I decided to check out Chartboost. I'd used like Prime 31 plugins for quite a while, prime31.com, and I'd used that for like, I think, iAds and in-app purchases, AdMob, Tapjoy, and a bunch of other things. And I saw on their website that they'd got this like Chartboost, and I kept going back into their website, and it always showed Chartboost plugin, Chartboost, and it said something like, "Oh, you know, a Chartboost is a definite need for those of you who want to get good ad revenue." So I thought, all right, I'll check it out, because AdMob is not doing well here, even though we're getting more downloads now because of Amazon. iOS's downloads are going down, but I need to check this out. So I put Chartboost in one of the games, and I can't remember which one it was, but Chartboost was like really good within the first month. I think it might have been late December 2013. I don't know if I can pull this up and take a look while I'm talking on the video, because it'll jog my memory a little bit. But yeah, late 2013 maybe, and instantly, like, I could see the potential in having Chartboost ads in the game. So Chartboost was like the savior. Really, it was like it brought me like back from the brink. So I'm just I can't see all time here. Sorry guys, I was just gonna quickly browse and then see where how far back my historical data could go, but I don't think it's gonna go back that far. No, I can't. Sorry guys. Maybe I can, but I can't figure it out right now. So, but yeah, Chartboost. So it was shifting from AdMob to Chartboost, and then focusing on full screen interstitial ads. That made a big difference, because at that time, and still now, companies are paying a lot for installs, and it was getting higher and higher to pay for those installs as well. And I think around that time as well, in late 2013. I was also teaching a little bit of English in my friend's company, and that was just sort of to supplement my income, because at that time again it was still pretty tough, and I was working really hard to try and bring in as to have like a stable sort of revenue, and stable enough to pay myself comfortably and not like panic myself to sleep every night. Speaking of sleep, I mean, sleep was really hard. I was constantly thinking about it. My emotions were constantly up and down all the time, and it was a really tough year. But in late 2013, anyway, my friend said, "Hey, we should start this company to publish Chinese games overseas." And I said, "Yeah, that's cool. We can get a little bit of funding." And this is what became PandaTap Games. You guys probably heard about it a few times on the videos. And the goal of PandaTap, we said, was to help Chinese developers find publishers overseas. In the beginning, what we tried to do was be the middleman for publishers. So basically, we would find a Chinese game from a Chinese developer. Then we would try to find an overseas publisher, and then we would try to be the people in the middle and introduce them, and then they would go off and do their game, and we would get a percentage. that was really tough to achieve, because trying to find big publishers to publish games quickly is very difficult, and then trying to find the games that they want and be the middleman for the developer was also complicated, because with communication, who handles what? You know what I mean? Who handles like updating SDKs? Who handles the translation? Do you constantly work in the middle, or do you let them talk together? And if they talk together, how do you secure your revenue? Once the revenue comes in, does it go directly to them, or does it come to you? So that was a lot of that was something that didn't really work out for a couple of months there, a few months. I mean, we were working with the BD person in Malaysia, and she was helping us to find publishers overseas. But it was a really difficult business model, because being in the middle between the developer and the publisher is really tough. So basically, what we said was, we'll just publish the games ourselves. Why not? I mean, I know how to do this. I've been doing it now for like what? It's 2030, so like almost 3 years at this point. Or however long it was, and so now we're stepping into 2014, and so we published a couple of games from Chinese publishers, and it worked out. It worked out fine, like doing it that way. We helped them to translate it. We helped them to update the SDKs, tell them what they needed, gave them feedback on icons, names of the games, things like that. And we published, I think the first one might have been Pop the Fruit 2. Which has continued to do pretty well for over 2 years now, and that's like a bubble shooter game with like I think 30 to 40 levels, something like that, and that continues to bring in revenue from like 2 years ago, which is really good. In the beginning, it did great, and this was in 2000. I'm trying to think. This might have been mid 2013. I might have got the dates a little bit mixed up there. I think. PandaTap sort of really got going in early 2013, which was one of the reasons why I was also so busy, because I was still building my own games in 2013, and then we'd also started PandaTap in like the late 2012, and then it sort of only started started to get going in 2013. So there was a lot of work to do there as well, but the first game actually did pretty well. It brought in some good revenue. We published it on Amazon first, since that was like the holy grail app store at the time in 2013, and that was bringing in some pretty good revenue. I think like maybe like $30 to $40 each day or something. They put chart boost in the game, they had ad mob in the game, in-app purchases were good, there was a lot of replayability because there's so many levels, and the downloads are pretty good as well, because we were actually ranking pretty high for the Candy Crush Saga search at that point. That was before Candy Crush Saga actually was released on to Amazon. So that was why it was doing so well around 2013, and then we released a bunch of other games as well from Chinese developers, a slots game on iOS, a space shooter game on Amazon and Google Play, and some of them just didn't do very well at all, but the original ones seem to continue to do pretty good all the way through, and it still does fairly good now as well, continues to do fairly good. So that was 2013, and that's probably why it was such a difficult year, was because of trying to run like two businesses at the same time, still trying to bring in the revenue from Colbert Play as well, still designing and building, and then I just sort of like towards when was it? I think I'm trying to think of the years now of exactly when I moved down into South China. What year was it now? It was 2014 we moved here, so that would have been like late 2013 when we moved. Yeah, like sort of like August or October 2013 that we moved into South China, and we stayed at my wife's hometown for I think roughly like, it's been like 6 months or something, and that was the time when I did a bunch of videos that you guys might have seen, where I show myself as like the only foreigner in the town, like what's it like living for a foreigner living in the outback of China, and that was interesting, and it was kind of crazy because we had to move everything from the nice apartment and then move into South China and fly down there. That was when my sciatica problem was really bad, and my skin was also really bad at that point. 2013 was such a tough year, just emotionally and like physically. And I remember when we tried to get down to South China, where we were moving to, and just going on the plane was like, it was like hell for me. Like, my back constantly hurt, and you know, you guys who might have had back problems, you know, like if it's not, it's like the worst place to have a problem, you know, is your back, because everything moves from that point. And I remember, like, when I was walking through the airport, I was walking down this long corridor to pick up our luggage, and I had to stop like every sort of 20 meters and just like kind of put my hands on my knees, because that was the only position that I found was I was okay in. Apart from lying down, that was the only other position. I put my hands on my knees. And getting in the taxi, I remember going from like this city, Zhuhai, back to my wife's hometown in the taxi. I had to like lie down in the back seat because it was that bad. It was that terrible that I had to like lie down there and let my wife go in the front. So it was that was really difficult. The relief was, though, guys, that because I was moving back to my hometown and staying with my my wife's family for however long, we didn't really know, is that it did lay off some money pressure for a while. That gave me time to really like gather up some money and not feel so much pressure at the time. And even though it was like a tiny village and there wasn't anything to do there at all, I just stayed in the home all day and I just walked out in the garden like a little bit. I did kind of get used to it, and it did allow me to slow down a little bit and get a little bit healthier as well, because my wife's mother was cooking and she did some great food, and my skin started to get a little bit better at that point as well. But that unfortunately was also the time where I had like a major back problem. I was lying in bed and I turned over one time and I sneezed, and it basically nearly killed my back. It was the most painful experience of my life was when I sneezed and I pulled my back. It was getting better for a few days there. I was able to sort of sit down for about 5-10 minutes without needing to walk around again. I was able to walk a little bit easier, but this one night I just turned over to my side, and I remember it really very vividly, sneezing, and then I was just like, oh my god, and I was in just like a ton of pain, and I turned around to my wife and I couldn't even speak. I was like, you know, and I was in bed for 4 days basically. Couldn't move. Maybe 3 days I couldn't move out of the bed. It was awful. So for 3 days I was just looking up at the ceiling, but it was strange in those 3 days. Those 3 days was actually the most relaxed and calm that I'd ever been. So you guys who are entrepreneurs and developers out there, you know how much stress, how much pressure, how much emotional up and down you go through as an entrepreneur, especially in games, and you know, especially as a small team. That 3 days where I wasn't doing anything, it was horrible for me in a way, but in another way it was actually the most relaxing time, because I didn't do anything. I didn't think about anything. I think all I did was like watch some movies. I couldn't even, it was really difficult for me to turn to my side. I couldn't even do that. It was a really tough time, and also I didn't have any like bad food at that point. I was just sort of eating soup because I didn't want to go to the toilet, you know, because I couldn't go to the toilet. That was a big problem, obviously. So I think that was in like late 2013. That was late 2013 at that point. Eventually I could get out of bed. Eventually I could walk around. It took me weeks for me to actually get a little bit better, but it was always hurting. I went to this hospital, and my wife's family was like, you know, really kind and helped me to go to this hospital and took care of me and all of this stuff. So that was really great, and it actually made me get a lot better. My skin didn't get much better though, unfortunately. And that sort of takes us up to late 2013, and then 2013, I think, late 2013 was when we got this guy as well, and Louis came into our life, so that was awesome. So anyway, guys, I'm going to pause it there because it is 25 minutes, and I'll be back in the next part, so stay tuned.